King Solomon stands as one of the most fascinating figures in all of recorded human history. He was not simply a king who sat on a golden throne and gave orders. He was a man who genuinely understood people, their fears, their desires, their lies, and their love. Born as the son of King David, Solomon inherited a great kingdom. But what made him truly legendary was the remarkable depth of his judgment. The story of how Solomon received his wisdom is deeply moving and worth studying carefully. When God appeared in a dream and offered him anything, wealth, power, long life, or victory, Solomon made a choice that surprised everyone. He asked simply for an understanding heart, the ability to judge between right and wrong, so he could serve his people. That one humble request revealed more about his character than any conquest ever could. What followed that choice was extraordinary and instructive. God, moved by the sincerity behind Solomon's request, granted him not only wisdom but also tremendous wealth and honor, things Solomon had never once requested. This teaches something powerful that many people miss entirely. When you pursue the truly right things with honest intention, the things you actually need find their way to you without desperate chasing, scheming, or anxious striving for more. The most celebrated story of Solomon's wisdom involves two women and one infant, both claiming the same baby as their own. There were no witnesses, no records, no ordinary way to verify who was telling the truth. A lesser judge would have walked away helpless. Solomon called for a sword and declared the child would be divided between the two women. The real mother instantly surrendered her claim to protect and save her child. This decision was far more than clever legal performance. Solomon understood deeply that people reveal their true selves not through rehearsed words but through instinctive reactions under sudden pressure. Real emotion cannot be faked in a genuine moment of crisis. The true mother's response was raw and completely involuntary, and Solomon had been watching precisely for that kind of honest, unscripted human reaction from the very beginning of the entire difficult proceeding. Solomon governed Israel during what historians widely recognize as its greatest golden age. Foreign leaders traveled enormous distances simply to experience his legendary court and hear his wisdom firsthand. The temple he built in Jerusalem took 7 full years to complete, requiring tens of thousands of organized workers and rare imported materials. He managed this massive undertaking with the same careful, patient attention he brought to every single judgment and decision he ever issued. His encounter with the Queen of Sheba paints one of history's most revealing portraits of his character. She arrived carrying difficult riddles and prepared questions designed to test whether his famous reputation was genuine or simply exaggerated. Solomon answered every question with calm ease and clarity. But what truly overwhelmed her went beyond intellectual ability. It was the quiet order, deep thoughtfulness, and graceful confidence that filled every single corner of his entire palace. She openly admitted when leaving that everything she had previously heard about Solomon fell completely short of what she witnessed with her own eyes. This response from a powerful foreign ruler who arrived as a skeptic says something important. Genuine wisdom does not need to perform or announce itself loudly. It communicates through the quality of everything surrounding it, through the systems built, the atmosphere created, and the people it continuously touches and shapes. Solomon's wealth was almost incomprehensible by the standards of his era. Gold arrived at his court regularly by the ton. Rare woods were carefully imported from distant forests. Horses, chariots, exotic animals, and precious spices came from lands most people had never visited. Merchants from across the entire known world brought their finest goods to him. Yet despite all this surrounding abundance, Solomon never appeared consumed or corrupted by his extraordinary and overwhelming riches. The Book of Proverbs carries Solomon's most practical wisdom about everyday human life, and it reads today with surprising freshness. He wrote with clarity about the hidden cost of laziness, the lasting power of honest speech, and the importance of choosing companions with deliberate care. These were never abstract philosophical ideas. They were the refined and sharpened conclusions drawn from carefully watching real human behavior across many decades of intense, direct, and deeply personal experience. He understood the quiet destruction that comes from taking easy shortcuts when patient discipline is what the moment truly demands. People who read Solomon's Proverbs expecting dry religious instruction are often genuinely surprised by how immediately practical each observation feels. He wrote about pride leading to downfall, about how a soft answer turns away anger, and about the real difference between merely appearing wise and actually being wise in practice every single day. The Book of Ecclesiastes stands as perhaps the most honest meditation on human meaning ever written in any language. In it, Solomon surveys all his extraordinary accomplishments, the grand buildings, the designed gardens, the accumulated knowledge, the pleasures, the vast wealth, and the power, and asks with raw, uncomfortable honesty whether any of it truly satisfies in any deep or permanent sense at all when examined carefully. His question cuts through everything comfortable. His conclusion is humbling and worth sitting with seriously. Everything pursued without a deeper anchoring purpose ultimately amounts to chasing the wind. A man can build empires, write thousands of songs, accumulate more gold than anyone alive, and experience every pleasure imaginable, and still feel completely hollow at the center of it all. This admission from history's most accomplished man carries a weight that no ordinary person's confession could ever genuinely hope to match. Solomon's economic thinking was strategic and deliberate rather than accidental. He formed a productive alliance with King Hiram of Tyre that gave him access to skilled craftsmen and premium cedar wood for his construction projects. He controlled major trade routes and taxed them intelligently. He launched merchant fleets that returned from distant shores carrying gold, ivory, silver, and rare goods that consistently and reliably enriched his entire kingdom over many productive and carefully managed decades. His approach to building national wealth was always oriented towards sustainable long-term value through genuine relationships and fair systems, rather than through exploitation or short-sighted extraction that quietly weakens everything it touches over time. Solomon understood that real lasting prosperity is built on trust between rulers and merchants, between nations and partners, between government and people. Break that trust for short-term gain and the entire structure inevitably collapses completely in time. But Solomon's story carries a genuine shadow that honest observers must acknowledge clearly. His many foreign marriages, taken largely as political alliances, gradually drew him toward worshipping foreign gods during his later years. The scriptures record this decline honestly. Even the wisest person alive can slowly lose direction when they drift from the core values that originally anchored and sustained them through the most difficult, challenging, and genuinely testing periods of their remarkable life. His later failures do not diminish his historical greatness. They make him more genuinely instructive as a figure worth studying. They remind us that wisdom is never a permanent possession that, once achieved, stays with a person forever without renewal or recommitment. The man who wrote so beautifully about the dangers of straying from what truly matters ultimately experienced those very dangers personally, and that experience became part of his lasting teaching. The legacy Solomon left behind reaches far beyond any single famous judgment or celebrated book. He composed thousands of proverbs capturing the essential patterns of human life with remarkable precision. He wrote songs of extraordinary emotional depth and beauty. He engaged rulers, scholars, philosophers, and merchants from across the ancient world with genuine intellectual curiosity, an openness that was rare among men wielding such extraordinary levels of power and privilege in any era. He built lasting governing institutions and created trade networks that outlasted his reign by many generations. His influence spread far beyond the borders of Israel into neighboring cultures with no direct connection to Hebrew scripture. Long after his death, people across the ancient world continued telling stories about him, holding him as the standard against which wisdom, justice, and prosperity in any ruler should honestly and thoughtfully be measured and evaluated by thoughtful observers. What the modern world can draw from Solomon's life goes far deeper than the obvious lesson that wisdom is worth pursuing. Most people already know that in a vague, uncommitted way. The real and more demanding lesson is that wisdom must be chosen actively and deliberately, again and again, against the constant pull of easier and more immediately satisfying alternatives that present themselves to every single person. Every day without exception, Solomon chose genuine understanding over raw power when both were available to him at the beginning of his reign. He chose to listen patiently before speaking, to observe carefully before judging, and to ask the deeper and more uncomfortable questions even when easier answers would have satisfied most observers. These were not choices made once and forgotten. They were made repeatedly, consistently, and across the full arc of his remarkably long and consequential life. His relationship with wealth teaches something equally vital and transferable. Solomon did not accumulate his legendary riches by chasing money as his central driving purpose. He became wealthy because he focused sincerely on creating genuine value, governing fairly, building wisely, and serving his people with real dedication. Wealth followed naturally as a consequence of that sustained authentic contribution rather than as something desperately or anxiously pursued entirely and exclusively for its own sake. This pattern appears with striking consistency whenever thoughtful people study the lives of those who built something truly lasting. People who focus on creating real value for others tend to attract far more abundance than those who focus primarily on accumulating it for themselves alone. Solomon remains perhaps the oldest and most dramatic illustration of this enduring principle anywhere in the entire historical record, a principle that has never stopped being fundamentally true. Many rulers throughout history have been powerful. Many have been rich beyond ordinary imagination. Some have been remembered for military victories or great empires, but very few have been genuinely wise. Wise in a way that reaches across thousands of years and still speaks directly to actual challenges ordinary people face in daily life. Solomon achieved this rare distinction not because of his father but because of what he valued. His wisdom was not confined to grand public moments like the famous judgment of the two mothers. It lived in the daily texture of how he governed, how he treated visitors, and how he engaged with difficult problems. Wisdom at that level is never a single flash of insight. It is a deeply cultivated and practiced habit of seeing clearly, thinking honestly, and acting with genuine integrity in all circumstances. Solomon also understood something that many intelligent people never quite grasp, that knowledge and wisdom are entirely different things. A person can study countless subjects in impressive depth and still make consistently poor decisions in real life. Wisdom requires something beyond knowledge. It demands honest self-awareness to know your real limitations, genuine empathy to understand other people's experience, and the moral courage to act on what is right even when something easier is available. The world Solomon lived in was vastly different from the modern one in almost every external detail: the technology, the geography, the political structures, and the daily realities of ordinary life. But the internal challenges he faced were remarkably similar to those confronting every thoughtful person alive today. How do you lead without losing your soul? How do you build wealth without being consumed? How do you stay grounded when everything encourages pride? King Solomon's story resonates across thousands of years and across cultures that differ in almost every conceivable way because it speaks directly to something permanently universal in human experience. Every generation faces the same core questions he faced: how to make wise decisions under real pressure, how to live with authentic purpose rather than comfortable distraction, and how to find lasting satisfaction in a world that constantly offers hollow substitutes for the genuine thing.